back to Paige Eats Cake. Today I have a huge project for you guys and I'm sure you'll love it. I want to make for you guys a turkey layered cake. I'm really excited about it, but I do realize that it'll take a super long time. And so I just want to warn you guys that this will probably be a pretty long video. There are a lot of elements that I'll have to do for this project. So just be warned that you'll be here for a while. I think you guys will like it at the end though. It's supposed to be super cute. I haven't been able to try this cake because it's been such a big project. I just decided that I should just do it on camera. So we'll see how it turns out. Let's start with evening the cakes out. So we have our cakes made. I used a special chocolate cake recipe that I always use when I make chocolate cupcakes. I make my chocolate signature cupcakes with this cake mix. And I will post that for you guys so you guys can see that. It's my favorite. It's homemade. It's not a box mix. And I use it when I make cakes and cupcakes and sometimes cake pops too. And so I started with a chocolate cake and I baked it and everything. I actually made this cake last night and then I put it in the freezer. And that's usually what I'll recommend when we're making layered cakes or tiered cakes. It's easier to work with and it won't get stale if it's in the freezer, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so let's level these cakes now. So as you can see, they're not really level. So we are going to do that now. The reason we level cakes is so that it's completely flat and there's not like weird angles, so it doesn't look like a Dr. Seuss cake, if you know what I'm talking about. I have this special tool that I use to level the cakes, and I use it instead of a knife. You can use a knife, but it is a lot harder to use a knife because you don't get the exact level. It can go crooked. But with this, it makes sure that it doesn't go crooked. So basically, you guys can probably see it well, but it's just like a metal string, I guess. And it works the same way as like a saw. So when I have it to the point where I want it, I'll just go back and forth and I'll show you guys that. It's really cool. It has divots on the side where you can put it up to different heights. So you can level however high of a cake. So I'll show you guys that right now. To measure how tall we want this, I want to go from the lowest point of the cake, which is probably right here. So we'll raise it a little bit more. I don't know if you guys can see that, but the lowest point is right here. So we'll raise that a little bit more. Okay, so now I feel like we are at that level part where everything, the whole like surface of the cake will be level. So now I'm going to show you guys how to do this. It's super easy. If you guys have used like a saw for wood, it's kind of like that where you just go back and forth and back and forth. So as you can see, it's cutting it. And it's cutting it. And it's cutting it. It's going all the way through. I really, really love this tool because like I said before, it makes it super, super even on top, and I don't have to use a knife, and using a knife is a pain. Oh my goodness. Okay, so now we have sawed all the way through the cake, and we're just gonna take this off. And we're gonna put this to the side. Don't get rid of this top yet, and don't eat it yet, because you may need it to fill in empty spaces. And I will show you guys that later in the video. So right now, it didn't get all of it, so I'm just gonna go over it one more time. Okay. I'm gonna go over it a third time just really fast. Okay. Now this cake is level, so we will move on to the next cake. And as you guys can see, my cakes are pretty level. Without leveling them at all. I think it's because I froze them before, and it just kind of makes it like fall down a little bit. But this usually works best if the cakes are like in a dome and you want them to be flat. So it makes them easier to stack too. Since this low point is lower than this one, we're going to move this down one. And I'm sorry guys, I don't know how to explain this part. There's just little notches on the side, and you just move the little string thing up and down. So until you guys like have one for yourself, you guys won't get it, but yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna cut this one. Just sawing back and forth and making sure both sides of these stay on the table at all times. If it's not, then that's where it gets uneven and stuff. Okay, so now we're gonna take this off, and this one's pretty good. I'm just gonna go over it once more. Okay. So now we are done leveling the cakes, and I will show you guys the next part of it right now. Now I will show you guys how to frost these level cakes. So what I like to do, I have this turning table that I use, and I'll just put this parchment right there. So basically it turns just like in the name, and then there's this thing on the other side, and you just pull it back and it stops it, so you can't move it anymore. And I really like to use this because when I'm frosting like the sides, I can just like spin it, and I'll kind of show you guys how I do that, but it's super, super nice. And I lock it when I'm like putting the cakes on and stuff. It's just amazing. I totally recommend one. I put parchment paper on top to not put the cake on it, because I think that's kind of gross, and it's not easily portable when you do that. You have to keep it like on the spinny thing. So now I will show you guys how I'll put the cakes on. First of all, I have my frosting, which is just the buttercream recipe that I showed you guys last video, so you can go check that out. And what I like to do when I first start my cakes is I like to put a little dot, well, kind of like a circle in the middle of it. And then I take a knife, and then I'll like smooth it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, this is like on the bottom. Now you may ask why I do this, because it's not on any cake or anything at all. But I do this simply to keep the cake in place, because even though it's on the parchment and on the turntable, it still doesn't really like to stay in place. So I will pick up one of my layers of cake and then I will place it down just like that. Okay, now is the frosting part, and this is my favorite part. This part you cannot mess up. I am first going to show you guys how to do the inside layer of frosting, and then I'll show you guys how to do the outside, because I have a surprise that I will teach you guys later in the video, but I'm not telling you it right now. I'll tell you it later. So first we're going to start from the outside just like all of it, and then we're going to go in. You will use a lot of frosting for this. I made a double batch of frosting because it's always good to have more, and I feel like I'm always running out of frosting. But specifically on this middle part, you'll use a ton of frosting. So I'll show you guys how I do it. I just start and then I go in a circle forever, it seems like. I'm going to squeeze my bag down. Down some more. And now it's time to get more frosting. So we'll do the trick that I showed you guys a couple videos back with the cup. Just putting the frosting in. I'll kind of fold it up. Then we'll push it down. Okay, now we're all ready. See, we haven't done all of it yet, so we're gonna finish it, starting from where we left off. Perfect. Okay, I'm just gonna fill in the spots that don't look too good. Okay. And as you guys can see, there are you can basically see no chocolate spots on the middle. And this is what it should look like. I feel like when I have smoothed it out with a knife, it's just been way too thin in the middle, but this is actually good, and you guys will be surprised at how this turns out. Okay, so now we're gonna do this one, and we are going to do it. Put it down just like that, right on top. Okay, so now we're kind of gonna use the same technique that we had used before. And now I'm going to tell you guys the surprise. Right now, on the outside of the cake, we're going to be doing a dirty icing, because I am going to be teaching you guys how to make fondant. Yay! Fondant is not hard to make, but it is hard to make it look pretty. So, I will teach you guys how to make it look pretty, and hopefully everything goes right. Okay, in this layer, it's also called a crumb frosting, because you don't need to worry about getting crumbs everywhere in the frosting. Usually when you're making a cake out of buttercream, you want to be super, super diligent in not getting any crumbs in the buttercream, because it's going to be on display. However, for the dirty frosting, you don't need to worry about that because the fondant will be over it. Yes, you still need to put frosting there because it keeps the fondant in place, but you won't be able to see it. So it's not important how it looks. So we're kind of gonna do the same thing that we did in the middle, and we're just gonna start from the outside and go in. Push it down. This doesn't have to be as close. We will be using our knife to spread this one out. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I've already used a lot of this frosting. So seriously, like double the frosting recipe because you will need it. So now I'm just filling the bag once again. Now here's how you'll do the sides. I'm going to unlock this and you'll just do it how you did the top. So you'll just kind of squeeze and then just go and turn it. See how this turntable is super, super nice to have? Because you can just turn it and turn it. Okay, that's good for now. I'm going to show you guys how to spread it on. It's not super hard. Just spread like butter or anything else you would spread on anything. Okay. So, as you can see, this is kind of crummy. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. There are crumbs all over this frosting, which is normal. The frosting, it seems like it's falling off this cake, and that could be a couple reasons why. I do think that this cake that I chose to make for you guys is it's not dense enough. So that could be one of the reasons why it's just not really sticking together when I'm trying to put the frosting on. It also could be because it is too cold, but sometimes this also happens when it's too warm. So really, there are lots of reasons why frosting won't stick on a cake. Okay, I am going to try to fix this, and next I will show you guys how to make fondant. Really fast, I just want to update you guys on the dirty frosting situation. So it was not sticking to the cake, and sometimes that happens, and it's totally okay. But thankfully, my dear mother was here to help me with it, and she suggested warming up the frosting just a little bit. So what I did is I put the whole container of frosting into the microwave, and I warmed it up for 10 seconds, and then I stirred it around, and then I warmed it up for 10 more seconds, and I stirred it around, and it went on perfectly. So always listen to your mothers, and don't freak out if it's not sticking. Try to warm it up, and yeah.